The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the screech of tires on wet asphalt as Jack flung the door open and hurled Max onto the deserted alley road. The puppy whimpered as his small body hit the ground, scraping against sharp gravel. Jack muttered, "Useless mutt," slamming the door before speeding away, leaving only exhaust fumes and the fading roar of his car. The rain poured harder, soaking Max's already matted fur, as his wide eyes darted helplessly in search of comfort. His ribs showed through his frail frame, each shallow breath a struggle, each heartbeat a reminder of betrayal. Pain twisted inside him, but fear weighed heavier than the ache. He trembled, his body pressed to the cold pavement, staring into the darkness that felt endless. No hand reached for him, no voice called his name. He shivered beneath the cruel downpour, abandoned in a world that saw him as nothing more than discarded trash. Max whimpered as he dragged his fragile body closer to the shadow of a dumpster, his small form nearly swallowed by the darkness. Hunger twisted in his stomach like claws, but the rain drowned out all hope. He pressed his head into his soaked paws, the smell of rotten trash mixing with his shallow breaths. His world had once held laughter and gentle touches, yet now only pain and abandonment consumed him. A distant thunderclap startled him, forcing his body into a trembling curl. He thought of warmth, of the life he no longer had, and his heart cried for comfort that never came. The city was vast, unfeeling, and silent to his pain. The alley stretched endlessly, each shadow a threat, each sound a reminder of his fear. Max's ears twitched at the rustle of a rat scurrying past, his body recoiling as though the world itself sought to harm him. His chest rose and fell in ragged rhythm, lungs fighting to catch air heavy with damp decay. He let out a faint whimper, his voice swallowed by thunder overhead. The echo of the car that left him replayed in his mind, the harsh voice calling him worthless searing deeper than any wound. His heart ached, not just from fear, but from betrayal that shattered trust. Max limped forward, paws slipping on slick asphalt, his body swaying with exhaustion. Each step felt heavier than the last, his fur dripping rivers of rain. His scar across the side of his neck stung with every drop, reminding him of cruelty he had endured. He searched for shelter, eyes darting toward doorways and windows that remained closed, indifferent to his suffering. The city lights above flickered like distant stars he could never reach. His whimpers grew softer, nearly drowned in the endless storm, yet deep inside him burned a fragile spark, the will to survive. Max stumbled and collapsed beside a broken crate, his body trembling with the effort of breathing. The rain softened for a moment, drops falling slower, but the chill in his bones did not fade. He lay still, listening to the hum of the city beyond, so close yet impossibly far. In his eyes lingered a quiet plea, not just for food or warmth, but for a reason to keep enduring. The world had taken everything from him, but deep in his fragile heart, he longed for one thing: to be seen, to be loved again. Max lay shivering in the shadow of the crate, his body exhausted, but his spirit clinging to a faint thread of hope. Memories of warmth returned in flashes. A gentle hand once stroked his fur, laughter once filled his ears. Now, the silence cut deeper than the rain. Hunger gnawed at his belly, sharper than the sting of cold pavement. He lifted his head, eyes filled with longing, as if searching for the kindness he once knew. A gust of wind sent trash scattering, startling him into retreat. Fear had become his constant companion, but within his fragile heart remained the desperate need to be seen, to belong once more. The storm slowed, leaving puddles scattered like mirrors across the alley. Max dragged himself forward, paws trembling as they slipped on slick ground. His reflection shimmered in a pool of water, a fragile creature staring back at him. He lowered his head, whimpering softly, his breath fogging against the cold. The city lights above blinked faintly, indifferent to his suffering. His ears twitched at a distant sound of footsteps, a presence faint yet unfamiliar. His heart quickened, torn between fear and the faintest spark of hope that someone might notice him. The silence returned, leaving him aching for what was not yet his. Max pressed against a cold brick wall, shivering as the air bit into his soaked fur. His fragile frame curled tighter, as though hiding might erase the ache in his belly. He remembered the taste of food once placed gently before him, and his stomach cried at the memory. Hunger had become a sharp companion, urging him forward yet offering no relief. His ears perked at the faint sound of a can rolling down the alley, making him whimper in fear. The world felt endless, yet his heart whispered for rescue, for one gentle soul who might see his worth. Emma walked briskly down the street, her umbrella barely shielding her from the rain. Her eyes often scanned the sidewalks, searching as though she expected suffering to linger in every corner. She had seen cruelty before and carried its weight, yet her heart never hardened. A faint sound reached her ears. A whimper carried through the damp night. She paused, head turning, eyes narrowing at the shadowed alley. Her heart skipped, torn between fear of finding more pain and determination to never ignore it. She whispered softly, "Please, let me not be too late," before stepping into the darkness ahead. Emma's footsteps echoed as she entered the alley, her eyes scanning the shadows. The faint whimper drew her closer, her chest tightening with dread. Then she saw him, Max, curled beneath the crate, his soaked body trembling. Her breath caught at the sight, sorrow piercing through her as though the cruelty inflicted on him had touched her own soul. She knelt slowly, careful not to startle him, her hand trembling as it reached outward. Her voice, soft yet steady, carried through the storm. "Hey, little one, it's okay, I see you." In that moment, two broken souls met in the rain. Max flinched when Emma stepped closer, his small body pressed tightly to the crate as though the wood could shield him from every cruel hand he had known. His eyes darted between her gentle gaze and the darkness behind her, fear and mistrust battling inside. Emma whispered, "It's okay, I won't hurt you," though her voice trembled with sorrow at the sight of his frail frame. The puppy whimpered, shuffling backward, ribs jutting against wet fur, but exhaustion kept him from fleeing. Emma's chest ached as she saw the raw scars across his neck, each mark a story of cruelty. She thought, who could do this? Yet her heart vowed silently, "I will not let him suffer again." Emma lowered her umbrella, letting the rain soak her hair as she inched closer. She wanted him to see her vulnerability, to know she was no threat. "You're safe now," she whispered, though Max's trembling body told her he did not believe. He pressed his head down, whimpering as the memory of Jack's angry voice burned in his mind. Emma's heart broke at the sight, but she knew trust could not be forced. She gently placed a piece of bread from her bag onto the ground, sliding it slowly toward him. The smell drifted through the air, tempting yet terrifying to the starving pup. Max sniffed the air, the scent of food stirring the emptiness in his belly. Hunger urged him forward, but fear anchored him in place. Emma kept still, barely breathing, her hand resting lightly on her knee as she whispered, "It's yours?" His small paw inched forward, claws scraping against wet stone. His eyes darted to Emma, searching for danger, but her steady gaze carried only compassion. Trembling, he leaned forward and snapped up the bread, retreating instantly to the shadows. Emma smiled faintly, relief flooding her chest, knowing this was the first fragile step toward trust. Emma shifted slightly, her knees aching against the wet ground, but she kept her focus on the fragile soul before her. Max chewed quickly, his eyes darting like a cornered animal, the bread disappearing as if survival depended on speed. Emma whispered softly, "Good boy, you're safe." Max lifted his gaze briefly, and in that fleeting moment, Emma saw pain, fear, and something more. A faint flicker of hope. Yet as thunder cracked overhead, Max whimpered and curled back against the crate. Emma's heart tightened. She realized how deep his scars ran, and how long the road to healing would be. Emma glanced down the alley, realizing how vulnerable Max was in this desolate place. "I can't leave you here," she murmured, her voice breaking. Max whimpered, shrinking back at her words, mistrust clashing with instinct. His ribs rose and fell rapidly, each breath ragged with exhaustion. Emma slowly set her bag aside, resting both hands on the ground in a gesture of patience. The rain poured harder, soaking them both, yet she did not move away. Her eyes locked on his, silently promising, "I will wait as long as you need." Max's heart raced, fear clinging to him, but for the first time, the thought of safety didn't feel impossible. Emma returned to the alley the next morning, the storm replaced by a pale gray sky. She carried a small blanket and food, her steps quickened by worry. Max lifted his head weakly from behind the crate, his eyes half closed but still alert. She noticed the faint outline of a collar hidden beneath his muddy fur, the tag long gone. Her heart sank. This little one had once belonged to someone, yet now lay discarded as though his life meant nothing. She whispered, "You weren't always alone, were you?" Max whimpered, the faint sound echoing his broken history. Emma clenched her jaw, her resolve hardening. Emma laid the blanket gently on the ground, her fingers brushing against Max's collar as he flinched at the touch. She whispered, "It's okay, I just want to help." Max's ribs rose sharply with each breath, his eyes flashing fear mixed with fragile trust. Emma examined the worn leather and saw faint letters scratched into its side. Max. The name whispered like a memory returning. "So that's who you are," she said softly, her voice breaking with emotion. Max lowered his gaze, curling closer to the ground as if ashamed of his own existence. But Emma's smile held fierce tenderness. Emma sat cross-legged on the cold ground, placing food in front of Max without forcing him closer. He sniffed cautiously, his hunger stronger than his fear. As he ate, in small, desperate bites, Emma whispered, "Someone gave you a name because you mattered to them once. You still matter now." Max paused, crumbs clinging to his wet whiskers, his eyes lifting briefly to hers. It was only a flicker, but Emma felt the weight of it. It was the beginning of a fragile bond. The alley seemed less silent, as if the world itself waited for him to believe again. Max ate quickly, his small frame shaking from both hunger and fear. Emma stayed still, her eyes locked on him with quiet strength. She noticed scars hidden beneath his fur, stories carved by cruelty. Her throat tightened, rage flickering within her heart. "They hurt you," she whispered, "but they don't deserve to define you." Max licked his muzzle nervously, retreating a step, but not disappearing into the shadows as before. For Emma, that single step forward was a miracle. She let the silence hang between them, filled not with fear, but with the fragile possibility of trust. As Emma prepared to leave, a faint sound caught her ear, a soft mew from deeper in the alley. She turned, eyes widening at the sight of a tiny kitten, no older than a few months, tangled in trash near a dumpster. Its fur was matted, its frame fragile, eyes filled with the same fear she saw in Max. Emma's heart clenched. She whispered, "You're not alone after all." Max's ears perked, his gaze shifting toward the sound. For the first time, his body did not shrink in fear, it leaned forward, curiosity breaking through the pain. Jack returned to the alley, his heavy boots splashing through puddles as his eyes locked on Max. Rage twisted across his face. "So you're still alive," he sneered, his voice dripping with cruelty. Max whimpered, stepping protectively in front of the tiny kitten that now clung to him. Emma froze at the sight of Jack, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "Stay away from him," she demanded, her body trembling with determination. Jack smirked, dismissing her as if she were nothing. The air thickened with tension, fear colliding with courage in the narrow, rain-slick alley. Emma stepped forward, shielding Max and the kitten with her body. Her eyes blazed with defiance despite the rain soaking her clothes. "You abandoned him and now you think you can harm him again? Not while I'm here." Jack's laugh echoed, cruel and hollow. He raised his hand as though to strike, but Max growled, a sound weak yet filled with raw determination. Emma's breath caught, pride and fear colliding inside her chest. For the first time, Max chose not to cower but to fight, even if his small body trembled. Jack snarled, worthless mutt, but his confidence wavered. The kitten mewed softly, pressing closer to Max's side, as if seeking courage from his trembling body. Max snarled louder, his eyes burning with fear and bravery. Emma's voice rose above the storm, sharp and unwavering. You don't get to hurt them anymore. Jack's fists clenched, his anger simmering, but Emma did not move aside. Her pulse thundered in her ears, but her determination was unbreakable. Max inched forward, planting his paws against the wet pavement. Though weak, he looked ready to defend. The alley seemed to hold its breath as cruelty and compassion prepared to collide. Jack lunged forward, his hand reaching toward Max, but Emma shoved him back with all her strength. "Enough!" she cried, her voice raw with fury. Jack stumbled, shock flashing briefly across his face before rage returned. Max barked. The sound cracked yet fierce, echoing louder than the storm. The kitten pressed close, eyes wide, but trusting Max's fragile courage. Emma's chest heaved, her body shaking, but she stood tall. The alley no longer felt like a prison. It had become a battleground where the innocent refused to break. Jack glared, but for the first time, he faltered. Breathless, Emma crouched beside Max, her hand brushing his soaked fur. "You're brave," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with tears. Max leaned into her touch, no longer pulling away, his body quivering but his spirit unyielding. Jack cursed under his breath, turning sharply before storming out of the alley, his shadow fading into the storm. Emma exhaled shakily, gathering Max and the kitten close to her chest. "You're safe now, I promise," she murmured. For Max, the battle had been more than survival. It was his choice to fight, to trust, and to believe that kindness still existed. Emma carried Max and the kitten into her small apartment, the warmth inside washing away the bitter chill of the alley. She set them gently on a soft blanket near the heater, her heart aching as she watched their fragile bodies curl together for comfort. Max trembled, his eyes darting nervously around the unfamiliar space, yet the warmth soothed his tired muscles. The kitten mewed softly, burrowing closer into his side. Emma whispered, "This is your home now, and you will never be abandoned again." Her words carried no hesitation, only fierce certainty. Max lowered his head onto the blanket, breathing in safety for the first time. Emma returned with a bowl of warm food, setting it carefully before Max. His nose twitched, but his body hesitated, torn between hunger and fear of betrayal. The kitten leaned forward eagerly, encouraging him with her tiny movements. Emma kept her distance, allowing choice instead of force. Slowly, Max stepped forward, his ribs visible beneath thinning fur, and lowered his head to eat. Emma's chest tightened, tears forming as she whispered, "That's it, you're safe." For the first time, Max ate without fear of being struck. Each bite was more than nourishment. It was proof that trust could be rebuilt. After eating, Max curled on the blanket, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Emma knelt beside him, her hand hovering before she gently touched his back. He flinched, a reflex of old pain, but then slowly relaxed beneath her steady hand. "No one will hurt you again," she whispered, stroking gently. His body quivered, yet instead of pulling away, he leaned into her touch. The kitten purred softly, her small body pressed against his. Emma's heart swelled as she realized he was beginning to believe her. In that fragile moment, healing began, not just for him, but for her too. Emma sat back against the wall, watching the two fragile lives finding peace in her home. She whispered to herself, "You've both been through so much, but you're safe now." Max lifted his head, ears twitching at her voice, his eyes softer than before. The kitten stretched lazily, pressing closer against him. Emma smiled through tired eyes, her body heavy with relief, but her spirit lighter than it had been in years. She thought of all the animals she couldn't save, but looking at them now, she knew these two mattered most. The room was quiet, but full of hope. Night fell, and the storm outside subsided into a gentle drizzle, tapping the window. Emma dimmed the lights, leaving only the soft glow of a lamp near the blanket. Max lay curled beside the kitten, his body rising and falling in calm rhythm. Emma whispered from her chair, "Sleep now, little one. You've fought enough." For the first time since his abandonment, Max drifted into peaceful sleep, his dreams no longer haunted by fear, but by warmth and safety. The scars remained, yet they no longer defined him. He was no longer discarded, he was home, and he was loved. Morning light filtered softly through Emma's window, painting golden streaks across the room. Max stirred, lifting his head as the kitten purred gently beside him. His body no longer shook with fear, those scars lingered like silent reminders. Emma stepped closer, her smile warm and steady. "Good morning, Max," she said softly. His tail thumped faintly against the blanket, hesitant yet real. The small sound filled the room with triumph. Emma's chest swelled, her eyes glistening with pride. The puppy who once trembled in shadows now greeted the day with fragile hope. For Emma, it was the purest victory. Emma set a small bowl of food on the floor, her movements gentle and unhurried. Max approached cautiously, sniffing before eating without fear, his ribs less sharp now beneath his coat. The kitten joined him, her tiny body brushing his side. Emma knelt nearby, resting her hand on the floor to show her patience. "You're stronger already," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Max paused mid-bite to glance at her, eyes softer than ever before. In that moment, Emma felt his silent gratitude, deeper than words. It was not just survival. It was the beginning of trust fully born. Later that day, Emma opened the apartment door to let sunlight and fresh air flow inside. Max padded hesitantly toward the threshold, the kitten close behind. He paused, staring at the outside world with wide eyes, the memory of cruelty still fresh. Emma crouched at his side, whispering, "You're safe now, little one. The world is yours to explore." Max took a cautious step outside, paws pressing against warm pavement. The kitten followed, mewing softly. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she watched them embrace freedom, not as abandoned souls, but as survivors standing at the edge of new beginnings. In the yard, Max bounded awkwardly at first, his thin frame still adjusting to strength returning. The kitten darted around him playfully, her tiny paws pattering across the ground. For the first time, Max barked with joy, the sound pure and unbroken. Emma laughed, her heart soaring as she watched them. "You've both come so far," she said softly, her voice trembling with love. The scars of their past would never fully vanish, but they no longer defined them. Their laughter, their steps, their freedom told a new story, one of survival, resilience, and a love that healed broken hearts. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Emma sat on the porch with Max curled at her feet and the kitten nestled in her lap. Max's head rested against her leg, his breathing calm and steady. The scars remained, yet his eyes shone with peace. Emma whispered, "You're home now forever." Max's tail thumped gently, a quiet promise of loyalty. The kitten purred, her tiny body a symbol of innocence reclaimed. Together they sat in stillness, framed by the glowing sky, a family born not of blood, but of love, survival, and hope everlasting.